You ever watch your own life turn into a twisted crime novel? 'Cause that's exactly where I found myself. See, most men, when they find out their wife is cheating, they throw a fit, break dishes, scream, maybe even cry like some tragic soap opera character. Me? I played it cool. I let her think I was clueless. Gabriella, my dear sweet wife, had no idea that I was onto her. No idea that I'd been watching, listening, following her every little move. What started as gut suspicion turned into undeniable proof. Hotel bills, late-night calls, and the worst part? She wasn't even trying to be careful, almost like she thought I was too much of an idiot to notice. At first, I wanted to confront her, just throw it all in her face and watch her squirm. But then I learned something that changed everything. Gabriella wasn't just cheating. No, she was planning something bigger, something uglier. She was plotting to rob me. Now, I'm not talking about emptying my wallet while I sleep or swiping a couple of my credit cards for some shopping sprees. No, her plan, or should I say their plan, was to take me for everything I had. The house, the car, my savings. She and her lover were working on forging documents to sell my assets behind my back. And that sent a cold chill down my spine. It was one thing to cheat. People do that all the time. But to set me up like some clueless fool and rob me blind? That was personal. That was war. So I did what any rational man in my position would do. I hired a private investigator, John Crater. Tough guy, straight shooter, no bullshit. The kind of guy who's seen it all and then some. He didn't even flinch when I laid out the situation. Just took a slow sip of his black coffee and said, "You want proof? I'll get you proof, but you're not gonna like it." Yeah, well, I already didn't like it. Now, here's the part where most people go running to the cops. But I'm not most people. I had another ace up my sleeve. Howard, my old friend from the force. He didn't know yet, but soon enough, I'd be knocking on his door. Because when this all goes down, I want it done right. I want Gabriella to get exactly what's coming to her. And trust me, she has no idea what's coming. I thought I had already hit rock bottom. Turns out there was a whole damn basement waiting for me. John Crater, my private investigator, came through with some real gold, or maybe real garbage, depending on how you look at it. Turns out Gabriella's lover wasn't just some random sleazebag. His name was Chad. And Chad was no ordinary homewrecker. No, this guy was a professional conman. Crater laid it out for me over a cup of burnt diner coffee. "Your wife's got herself a real winner, Tony," he said, sliding a thick manila folder across the table. "Chad's been in and out of the system, specializes in charming women, gaining their trust, and then bleeding them dry. He's done it before, and he's doing it again. Problem is, Gabriella ain't his first rodeo, and she sure as hell won't be his last." I clenched my jaw and flipped through the folder. Mugshots, court records, reports of women scammed out of their life savings, left with nothing but heartbreak and debt. And now, my wife, my own damn wife, was just another mark on his list. Except this time, she wasn't just a victim. She was an accomplice. This was no longer just her betrayal. It was a full-fledged crime in the making. I wasted no time. I called Howard. Howard's been my buddy for years, a solid cop, one of the few good ones left in the force. When I told him about Chad, he let out a long sigh. "Chad Peterson? That dirtbag?" he muttered. "Yeah, I know him. Did time for fraud and identity theft. Got out last year on good behavior, but guys like him don't change. If he's with Gabriella, that means she's in deep." Great. Just fantastic. My wife had gone from cheating on me to joining forces with a career criminal. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I checked the cameras. See, I had security cameras all over my house, but Gabriella never paid much attention to them. These cameras I installed secretly. What she didn't realize was that I had access to every damn angle, and last night's footage just ruined my life all over again. Gabriella was sitting on the bed looking at herself in the mirror, her hand resting on her stomach. And then she whispered something. "He doesn't even know I'm pregnant yet." Pregnant. My stomach dropped. I rewound the footage and watched again, just to be sure. But there was no mistaking it. She was pregnant, and there was a 99.9% chance it wasn't mine. I called Crater. I told him everything, the con man, the pregnancy. The fact that my wife was now plotting not only to rob me, but to carry this dirtbag's child while still legally married to me. Crater didn't even hesitate. First things first, he said. We gotta lock down your assets. Gabriella thinks she's playing you, but we're about to flip the script. So that's exactly what I did. On his advice, I contacted my lawyers, quietly. No sudden moves. No suspicious bank transfers. Just a few key adjustments to make sure that when the hammer drops, I'm not the one getting crushed. Meanwhile, Howard was already on the case. Listen, he told me. If Chad's back to his old tricks, we can nail him for fraud. And if Gabriella is actively helping him, that's conspiracy. You give me some time and we'll build a case. But Tony, this ain't just about watching anymore. You ready for this? I didn't even have to think. Yeah, I said. Let's take these bastards down. This wasn't just surveillance anymore. This was war. If I didn't know any better, I'd almost believe Gabriella was still a loving wife. She still kissed me on the cheek in the mornings, still asked me how my day was, still played the role of the devoted, caring spouse, just with the slight problem that she was sleeping with a con man and plotting to rob me blind. I'll give her this much. She was a damn good actress, but I wasn't the same fool she married anymore. Now I was playing my own game. For years, my job had kept me busy. Too busy. Business trips, late nights, endless meetings. I had thought I was building a future for us. Turns out, I was just giving her all the freedom she needed to betray me. She had used my absence as a blank check to do whatever the hell she wanted, and I had been too preoccupied to notice. But now I was watching. Gabriella had started asking a lot of questions lately. Innocent on the surface, curious, even affectionate. But I wasn't stupid. So, babe, when's your next trip again? She asked the other night, casually swirling her wine glass. Work keeping you busy? She smiled at me, but there was something lurking behind those eyes. A little too much interest in my schedule. I played along. I smiled back. Actually, I said, taking a sip of my whiskey, I've got a big one coming up. A 2-week trip. Out of the country. I watched her closely. She barely managed to keep her excitement in check. Her fingers tightened just a little around her wine glass. Her lips twitched as if she wanted to smile but knew she shouldn't. She took a deep breath, nodding like a supportive wife. 2 weeks? She said, feigning disappointment. Wow, that's a long time. I'll miss you. I almost laughed. Yeah, I bet you will. I already knew what was going to happen. 2 weeks was the perfect window for them to make their move. She and Chad had been biding their time, waiting for the right moment. And now I had just gift-wrapped it for them. Or at least, that's what they thought. Crater and I had already started setting the trap. The house was wired up. Hidden cameras, motion detectors. Every single move they made would be caught on tape. And Howard? Well, he was just waiting for my signal. Gabriella had no idea that her little heist was about to turn into a crime scene. And me? I just had to sit back, keep smiling, and let my sweet, loving wife think she was still running the show. The moment I left for my business trip, the real game began. Of course, I never actually stepped foot on a plane. Instead, I packed a bag, said my fake goodbyes, and drove straight to Howard's place. Howard had a small but comfortable apartment, messy as hell but functional. His fridge was stocked with beer, leftover takeout, and not a single vegetable in sight. It smelled like stale coffee and cop paperwork. Perfect hideout for a man about to watch his wife commit felony-level stupidity. From Howard's place, we had a direct feed to the cameras in my house. Crater had made sure of that. Everything Gabriella did, every move she made, I would see it all. And she didn't waste any time. Less than an hour after I was gone, Gabriella went straight to her laptop, logged into our joint bank account, and attempted to drain every last cent. Too bad for her, I had already locked everything down. Howard and I watched on the monitor as she furiously clicked through pages, her perfect little face contorting in frustration. She tried 3 times, different amounts, different transfers. Nothing worked. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. The phone call. My phone buzzed. Gabriella. I put her on speaker so Howard could enjoy the show. "Babe," she started, her voice all soft and concerned. "I just tried to move some money to pay some bills, but there's something wrong with the account. Everything's locked. Do you know what's going on?" I leaned back on Howard's ratty old couch, smirking. "Huh," I said, faking confusion. "That's weird. Must be a bank error or something. I'll call them when I get back." There was a pause. I could almost hear her gritting her teeth. "But that could take days." "Yeah, I know. Super annoying, right?" I said, dragging out my words just to piss her off. "But don't worry, babe. I'll handle it when I'm back." Silence. Then, finally, an exhale of pure frustration. "Fine," she said, her voice clipped. "I'll figure something out." She hung up. Howard chuckled. "She's pissed." "Good," I muttered, tossing my phone on the table. "Let's see what she does next." It didn't take long. 10 minutes later, Chad showed up. He strolled into my house like he owned the place, all confident and smug. I wanted to reach through the screen and break his goddamn jaw. Gabriella wasted no time explaining the problem. She paced around the living room, throwing her hands in the air, clearly pissed. Chad, on the other hand, looked way too calm. Then, through the hidden mic, we caught the next part of their brilliant plan. "Screw the bank account," Chad said, lounging back on my couch. "We don't need it. We move to the next step, selling the house. We do it fast, in cash, through my guy. No paper trail." I sat forward. There it was. Gabriella nodded quickly, like a desperate woman clinging to a sinking ship. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." Howard glanced at me. "Well, Tony, looks like your wife just crossed the point of no return." I let out a slow breath, my fingers curling into fists. "Yeah," I said, "and she has no idea I'm about to burn her whole world to the ground." It didn't take long for things to come crashing down. Just a few days after my business trip started, Gabriella and Chad met at my house again. Howard and I sat in his apartment, eyes glued to the live security feed. We had them. Every word, every movement, every shady little plan, all recorded. Chad was in his usual smug form, lounging on my couch like a king on his throne. "All right, baby," he said, stretching his arms. "We're set. I got buyers lined up and they're eager to close fast. We do this and by the time your dumbass husband figures it out, we'll be gone." Gabriella bit her lip. She looked nervous. "You sure this will work?" she asked. "Trust me," Chad smirked. "I've been doing this a long time." "Yeah, I bet you have, you scamming piece of shit." I clenched my fists as Gabriella nodded, her hesitation fading. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." Howard exhaled slowly. "They're all in now." "Yeah," I muttered. "And we're about to pull the rug out from under them." 2 days later, it was showtime. I watched as Chad and Gabriella welcomed their victims into my house. A couple, a man and a woman mid-40s, looking for a quick cash deal. They thought they were getting a bargain. Instead, they were about to get played hard. Chad had really outdone himself. He set up a fake real estate agency, complete with forged documents, fake lawyers, and a whole story about me being an overseas seller. It was all bullshit, but it sounded real enough to someone desperate for a deal. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," Chad was saying, his voice smooth as silk. "We can finalize the paperwork right now, and you'll have the keys by the end of the day. Just sign here." The buyers hesitated. Gabriella smiled, pretending to be the perfect supportive wife. "My husband just wanted this handled quickly," she lied. Howard tapped his radio. "All right, Tony," he said. "Time to end this." 1 second, everything was normal. The next, chaos. The front door burst open. A full SWAT team stormed in. "Police! Hands where we can see 'em!" Screams. Panic. The buyers backed away, terrified. Gabriella's face went completely white. Chad? The bastard didn't even flinch. Instead, he grabbed Gabriella and yanked her in front of him. "Don't move!" one of the officers shouted. But Chad was already moving. He used Gabriella as a human shield, shoving her toward the cops before making a break for the back door. Howard cursed. "He's running!" I watched, heart pounding, as Chad slipped through the chaos and vanished into the street. But Gabriella? She wasn't so lucky. Within seconds, she was on the ground, handcuffed, and surrounded by cops. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud," an officer said as he read her rights. Gabriella just sat there, stunned, like she couldn't believe this was happening. I took a deep breath and stood. "Let's go see my wife." Gabriella was in a holding cell when I arrived at the station. Her makeup was smeared from crying. The moment she saw me, her face crumpled. "Tony," she whispered. "Oh my God, Tony, you have to help me." I said nothing. She gripped the bars, desperation flooding her eyes. "Please," she sobbed. "It's some kind of mistake. It's not my fault, I swear." Lies, more lies. I just stared at her, and I didn't say a single word. Gabriella stared at me, her fingers gripping the cold metal bars. She looked desperate, pathetic, a far cry from the confident, scheming woman who had thought she was about to walk away with everything I owned. "Tony, please," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You have to believe me. I'm a victim here. I didn't know what was happening. Chad, he tricked me. I was scared." I let out a slow breath, crossed my arms, and just watched her. She blinked, then leaned in closer, her voice softening. "Tony, I'm pregnant." I almost laughed on the spot. "Tony, did you hear me?" she pressed. "We're having a baby, our baby. You can't let me rot in here." And that was it. That was the moment I broke. Because instead of getting angry, instead of feeling sad or betrayed, I just laughed. I laughed so hard I had to brace myself against the chair. Gabriella's expression twisted in shock, then in pure rage. "What the hell is so funny?" she snapped. I wiped a fake tear from my eye. "You," I said between chuckles. "You actually think I'm stupid enough to fall for this?" She froze. I stepped closer to the bars, my voice dropping. "You think I don't know?" I said, tilting my head. "That I don't know about Chad? About your brilliant little plan? About the bank account? The forged documents? The fake real estate deal? The cameras, Gabriella. The microphones. I have every single word you said on tape." Her face drained of color. That's not true." I smirked. "It's funny. That's exactly what Chad said before he ran like a little rat and left you behind." Her lips parted slightly. "Chad? Yeah, your real baby daddy." I scoffed. "I know everything, Gabriella. I knew before I even left for my trip. I knew before you even got desperate enough to try and empty the bank account, and I knew before you ever thought about lying to my face one last time." She opened her mouth, but I wasn't done. "You want me to save you?" I asked, stepping back. "Why the hell would I do that? You're a liar, a thief, a traitor. The woman I married is dead, Gabriella, and all that's left is a criminal begging for help." Her face contorted. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Tony, please, Before she could finish, Howard walked in. "Got some good news for you, buddy," he said, giving me a smirk. "We got Chad. The dumbass was trying to skip the state, but we pulled him at the bus station. He's in cuffs as we speak." Gabriella let out a choked gasp. Howard turned to her, shaking his head. "And guess what? He's already talking. See, we offered him a deal. Less time for a full confession. Want to guess what he said?" Her whole body stiffened. I leaned in one last time, my voice cold. "He threw you under the bus, sweetheart." Her breath hitched. "And I'm going to enjoy watching you crash." It didn't take long for Chad and Gabriella to turn on each other. During interrogations, they threw blame around like it was a hot potato. Chad swore up and down that Gabriella was the mastermind, that she was the one who set everything up. Gabriella, through crocodile tears, claimed that Chad had manipulated her, that she was just a poor, naive woman caught up in a con. The detectives just sat back and let them dig their own graves. But the problem for them? We had everything on tape. The bank fraud attempt. The plan to sell the house. Chad pushing the fake real estate scam. Gabriella willingly playing her part. With all that evidence, this case was a slam dunk. Chad got the worst of it. With his long history of fraud and scamming, the judge threw the book at him. The prosecution painted him as a career criminal with zero remorse, and the jury agreed. He got 15 years. No parole. Gabriella? Her pregnancy saved her from a harsher sentence, but not from justice. She got 4 years, a reduced sentence, considering the baby. But with no money, no support, and no Chad, she had nothing left. I sat through the entire trial, listening, watching. I should have felt victorious, satisfied that she was finally facing the consequences of her actions. Instead, all I felt was pity. Not enough to forgive her, not enough to change my mind, but just enough to remind myself why I had once loved her. Still, I didn't go to her after the trial. I didn't say a word. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with them. After it was all over, I knew I couldn't stay. Too many memories, too much wreckage. So, I sold the house, the same house Gabriella had tried to steal from me. Watching that for sale sign go up in the front yard felt like ripping off the last piece of a bandage. I packed my things, moved to another city, somewhere fresh, somewhere quiet. And for the first time in years, I started to breathe again. 8 months later, I met her. Megan. She was a teacher at the elementary school near my new place. Smart, kind, genuine. The kind of woman who didn't play games, who didn't wear masks, who didn't look at people like they were opportunities. At first, I was hesitant, still raw, still guarded. But Megan? She had a way of making the world feel simple again. And before I even realized it, I was falling in love again. One evening, after dinner with Megan, I checked my mailbox. A letter from prison, from Gabriella. I stood there, staring at it. I already knew what it would say. Apologies, regret, excuses, maybe even a plea for me to be there for the child she was now raising behind bars. I sat down, turning the envelope over in my hands. Then, I didn't even bother opening it. I grabbed my lighter, walked to the kitchen sink, and set it on fire. The paper curled, darkened, turned to ash. And just like that, Gabriella became nothing more than a bad memory. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to the channel. I wish you a great mood and good luck.